Good evening, dearest Tams, and welcome home. I hope that your drive was eventful only in positive, reflective ways. I'm hoping to help ease you into the evening and hopefully to help you get a good night's sleep. I would share with you Chapter 27, Ant Code. For the first time in many years that I had lived there, my little house in Southern California had been taken over by members of the Formaticaria family, commonly known as ants. I made the discovery at the close of a hot day as I went out to the back porch to get some food for that night's dinner. I had left the door of the old fashioned icebox open. There was no ice. I had forgotten to hang out the ice sign, and milling all over the food on the inside were more ants than I had ever seen inside a house before. They were also all over the walls, floors, and ceilings of both porch and kitchen. Under the back door came line upon line of reinforcements headed for the new food find. My dinner was ruined, so was my disposition, and so were my resolutions about treating all forms of life with respect, kindness, and consideration. I resented these ants in a most primitive way. Hurrying over to the nearest neighbor, I borrowed a can of ant poison. With this in one hand and a broom in the other, I was ready for massacre. I was going to show those little bandits that they could not get away with pillaging my house. I was just about to let them have it with both poison and broom when my New England conscience began to hiss. It demanded to know why, with all that I had been privileged to experience in relationship balancing, I should want to kill these ants. I began to reason with myself, always an excellent thing to do when one is in a combustible mood. Finally, I decided not to go through with my slaughter, but to confer with my unwelcome guests, as Strongheart and other animals had taught me. But how to confer in a practical way with such an army of ants? Sitting on the floor, in order better to observe the situation, I tried to discover which was the ant head or committee of ants in charge of operations, so I could have a specific target at which to aim my remarks. But though I looked searchingly through a powerful magnifying glass, no one ant or group of them appeared to be any more important than the others. Each ant seemed to be doing its required part in the general effort without the need for direction or supervision. Setting up an invisible bridge for two-way thought traffic between oneself and a single animal is relatively easy when one is ready for such an experience and goes about it in the same way. But establishing such intercommunicating systems with hundreds of ants over the house was something entirely different. I decided that the only way it could be done was to turn myself into a kind of broadcasting station and talk to all the ants at the same time. This I proceeded to do. Listen, ants, I said. We seem to be living in a topsy-turvy world. At the moment, I am not entirely sure whether you or I belong in this house. But one point I am very clear. Your wants have ruined a perfectly good dinner for me. I had to go to considerable effort and expense, and all alone too, in order to get this food for my dinner tonight. I have to eat to live just as much as you fellows do. Then without any kind of a may we, you came sneaking in here and take my dinner away from me. This is neither right nor fair from any angle of approach, especially in these difficult days when we all ought to be trying to help one another. I paused for observation purposes. The broadcast did not seem to be having the least effect on them. More ants were coming in under the back door, more were appearing on the walls and ceilings, and more appeared to be working on the food. It was discouraging. Nevertheless, I kept on. You ants may not be aware of it, I said, but I am in a position to wipe most of you out of existence within the next few minutes with this poison and this broom. But that doesn't seem to be the right answer here. We humans have been killing one another off in matters of this kind for centuries, and we are worse off today than we were when we started. Then, remembering how every living thing likes to be appreciated, I began sending all the complimentary things I could think of in their direction. I told them how much I admired their keen intelligence, their zest for living, their complete dedication to whatever they happened to be doing at that moment, their harmonious actions and a common purpose, their ability to work together without misunderstandings or the need to be constantly told what to do. I paused to take another look through the magnifying glass. The situation seemed to be worse than ever. I decided to bring the broadcast to a close. That's all I have to say to you, Ants, I said. I've honestly done my best in this situation. The rest is up to you fellows. I am speaking to you as a gentleman, to a gentleman. I went into the living room and sat down in a chair. I felt dejected, and I began to wonder if I were not mentally unhinged. Things did seem to be moving in that direction. I suddenly remembered that an old friend who happened to be an authority on mental disorders had told me a few weeks ago, before that the line between sanity and insanity is often difficult to establish, and many of us have crossed it on a daily basis in the things that we think and say and do. Had I crossed the line in my broadcast to the ants? Was it sane to try to set up a gentleman's agreement with them? I took my confusion to a comedy theater and tried to forget the entire experience. Returning home shortly after midnight, I went out on the back porch to see what was happening. There was not an ant in sight, not one. The icebox door was still wide open, with an invisible food inside, and the inviting food inside. And there was some food on the table nearby, but not an ant in sight. I went over practically every inch of the floor, wall, and ceiling space in the house with a flashlight, but not one ant could I find. Those little fellows had actually kept their part of the gentleman's agreement. This happened several years ago. Since then, I have never been bothered by ants in any manner, at home or abroad. Occasionally a scout ant passes through one of the rooms on the way from outdoors to outdoors and pauses just long enough for us to exchange a friendly silent greeting with each other. There are countless hundreds of ants moving above the grounds where I live, and plenty of easy entrances into this house. There is usually food that ants like in the kitchen and on the back porch. But while they invade the houses of all the neighbors and annoy them excessively, they never gang up on me. Not anymore. Our gentleman's agreement still holds good, not only with the ants that invade my house that day, but with all other ants. It is like holding an invisible honorary membership card in the ants union. I hope that you are feeling refreshed and blessed and still under that wonderful peaceful feeling that you experienced while you were at the retreat. I look forward to chatting with you more come tomorrow, Tams. I hope that you sleep very well, and I love you, Tams Nicholson.